Hi, my name's Neil. This is Neil's Movie Channel. Thanks for finding me if you have, and I hope you'll stay till the end. A while back I posted a whole load of videos just on my Laserdisc collection, and I haven't done anything more since then. Those videos were just showing the titles. That was pretty much it. Yeah, then I've kind of taken a break from recording anything else. I thought I would launch straight into doing a bit of a movie channel, but I guess I was I don't know, initially intimidated, still am to an extent, because certainly there's a lot of you out there who have got, you know, great channels already, a lot of knowledge out there, and there was me thinking, hey, I've been watching movies all my life, I know a lot, and actually started thinking, actually no, you all seem to know a hell of a lot more than I do, but still I thought it would be fun to just try and get a channel going and try and talk about some of the things that I'd like to talk about, and maybe along the way some of you will be interested in that. Really for me, I'm into DVDs and Laserdiscs. Those are the things that I collect the most. Some Criterion collections, a few Kino Lorber here and there, and things like that. But yeah, I'm not one that's really into you know, sticking with all the boutique labels and all the Arrow releases and Eureka and Twilight Times and all of those, although I definitely enjoy seeing people's videos on those, so you know, that's great, all the 4K stuff, and so many of you know about all the different upscales and you know, different transfers and all of that kind of thing, so great, I enjoy seeing some of that, but yeah, I haven't got all that kind of knowledge myself. I'm a bit more old school, I guess. I just know the movies, know what I've seen, whether it's been a good print, a bad print, or whatever, and yeah, go from there. But yeah, for this first little video, I just thought, okay, let's just go back to the beginning and just sort of talk a little bit about the films that started me off, and see if some of these titles resonate with you, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, for me, I mean, I've been watching movies for a long time. My earliest recollection of going to the cinema would have been back in about 1974, 75, and it was to see Digby, the Biggest Dog in the World. So my mum took my sister and I to go and see Digby, the Biggest Dog in the World, which was Jim Dale starring in that, along with an old English sheepdog that grew to an enormous size. Yeah, I think I maybe saw it again on TV some years later, but yeah, I think that's pretty much disappeared nowadays. I haven't seen that around anywhere. But interestingly, when I when I saw Digby, it was on with a strange double bill, because you know, back in those days it was still you know, double bills was still common at the cinema. But yeah, but it was on with Northwest Frontier with Kenneth More. So a really strange choice of films to have together. But yeah, I think I remember more of Northwest Frontier than I do of Digby. And actually I got to see that again fairly recently. It's a really good J. Lee Thompson film, good adventure movie, great train sequence in it, getting stuck on a bridge, good film. So yeah, that's my earliest recollection of going to the cinema. And then certainly, yeah, in my early childhood, we didn't go to the cinema much, but yeah, I do remember probably the most fun family outing of going to the cinema would have been to see The Rescuers, which was great fun. And then perhaps not quite so great fun, it's a bit more traumatizing, but we also went and saw Watership Down. Fantastic movie, but quite heavy when you're, I guess I would have been about 8 or 9 when I saw that. But yeah, moving forward, I mean, when I started going to the cinema myself, that would have still been to see things like Superman 2. That was a big one that I saw with my dad. I had such a great time seeing that. And I don't know, then things like Tron. I saw that with my neighbour. My neighbour was a computer kind of expert programmer at the time. So and his son was too young to go with him. So and my dad wasn't interested, I don't think, to go and see it. So I ended up going to see Tron with my neighbour, and that was pretty incredible film to see back then, before right at the start really of computer animation. So good time. The turning point for me, when I really started to think, cinema, was I've actually written it down. I used to keep a notebook, and so the first film that I saw, which I thought, I have to write this down, and I started keeping a list since then. But yeah, the first one was The French Connection. And this film just blew me away when I saw this. I saw it on TV. This was in 1983. 28th of March 1983, so I was about 14. And it was just incredible. Obviously it's famous for the car chase and things like that, but really it was Gene Hackman that I just found his acting to be just so incredible. The way he spoke his lines. I hadn't really come across anything quite like that, I don't think, at that time. He just sounded so. It didn't sound like he was saying his lines. He just sounded so convincing, and then the whole stuff in the movie where he's out in the cold and you're seeing him walking the streets and trying to keep warm, and everything just felt so gritty and real and convincing. And then of course there's all the action sequences. There's the incredible high-speed car chase, and you got him with all the editing there, and he's driving and he's punching on the steering wheel and he's looking up at the tracks to see if he can catch up with the train. All of that was just so amazing to me when I saw that. So that's my starting point. That was quite an interesting time, I guess, to start watching films. And when I look at my list here, it's quite a mixed bag of things that I then started watching right after that. So just to run through some of the titles, I've got The War of the Worlds, 1953, the Byron Haskin one. The Bank Shot with George C. Scott. Knight Rider the movie. Chisholm, John Wayne. We used to watch a lot of John Wayne films on TV back then. The Paper Chase. Robert Culp in The Hanged Man. Gathering of Eagles, Rock Hudson. Charge of the Light Brigade, Errol Flynn. And then there was a lot of made-for-TV movies as well back then. So quite a few of those came up. Someone's Watching Me. The Beasts Are on the Streets. Then other films I watched, a bit of Roger Moore in North Sea Hijack, or Folks as it's called now. The Sins of Rachel Cade. And the first film I saw at the cinema when I started doing this list was Tootsie. Funny one to be the first one to write down, but there you go. I remember seeing that. That was a great fun movie. And then I guess a couple of the others that really made a big impression on me back then. One which is still, and I'm talking about films which are still my favourite films, but this one, Alan Ladd in Shane. I watched a lot of westerns. Like I say, there was a lot of John Wayne westerns on TV back then, which were, I had a great time watching those. Most of those I really liked. She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, and The Sons of Katie Elder, and The Searchers, and Rio Bravo, and all of those. Absolutely loved them. But Shane for me was just a bit different. It was so beautiful. Every frame of this film is just beautiful. But the key thing that I really remember from this is the Jack Palance scene with Elisha Cook, where Elisha Cook's walking along in the muddy kind of street, and the Jack Palance does his prove it moment with him. and it's that moment when, spoiler alert, he shoots Elisha Cook, and the sound of that gunshot, I hadn't heard a sound like that in any other Western at that point. I mean, it was a real booming gunshot. Yeah, I still remember that, remarkably. I mean, it's just such a great film, this. Everything about this film, I really love it. This for me remains just one of my all-time favourites. Another huge impression, which I'm definitely not alone in this, but and again, this wouldn't have been seeing it at the cinema. This would have been when it came onto TV, but it was such a big event, and that's Jaws. So, I mean, you've heard everyone speak about Jaws, everyone's got their own opinions about Jaws, but yeah, for sure, this coming on TV was a big event, and it was, it was so scary, and, for sure there were bits about it that looked fake and plasticky with the shark, but you didn't care about that. It was just so well made, and the characterizations so strong, and it was just such a big, powerful, fun blockbuster movie that really changed everything. So yeah, that remains a huge one, a huge favorite. And still with cinema going, 1984 was, there was a good time to be going to the cinema. I was 15 then, but it was Ghostbusters and Gremlins. Those are big releases. But another big release that came out that year, actually at the same time as Gremlins, and I actually had to buy a ticket to Gremlins so that I could then sneak in and see this movie, which was an 18 certificate, The Terminator. And although this is a DVD copy, I got this on VHS, and I would say, The Terminator was probably my most watched VHS movie, because I'm not really one for watching films over and over again, but back then, in my early teens, for sure there was a few favourites. The Terminator, Die Hard later on, and then also actually when I got a VHS copy of this movie, Jackie Chan's Police Story, and watched that so many times. So yeah, those were probably big VHS favourites that I had back then. Now in terms of international cinema, I guess actually when I started writing movies down, and so in 1983, May time, 1983. This was an interesting time on TV because, this was just back in the days when, BBC One, BBC Two, I don't think it was many other, ITV, there weren't many other channels. But yeah, I remember BBC Two, for some reason, were having a quite an extensive season of Luis Buñuel movies. So there I am, I'm 14 or whatever, just watching all these Luis Buñuel movies. So yeah, things like An Obscure Object of Desire, and there was The Milky Way and Belle de Jour, which is probably the one that stuck out the most because of Catherine Deneuve. Yeah, so that was, I guess the Luis Buñuel films were some of my earliest recollections of international cinema. But yeah, outside of Europe, the first international film that I remember seeing was Pather Panchali, and I only really remembered bits of that over the years, and it was only actually in the last few years that I've been able to see it again, and I hadn't realised when I first saw it that there was the other movies in the Apu trilogy. I didn't know of Apurito or Apu Sansar, so again, those are movies that I've only been able to watch fairly recently, and that whole trilogy is just fantastic. But yeah, back then Pather Panchali was one of my earliest international movies. Forbidden Games, Les Jeux Interdits, I remember that, and yeah, French films, so Le Ballon Rouge, The Red Balloon, the short movie, that was a big one, and then again watching at home, and certainly remember my dad laughing on this, but yeah, Jacques Tati movies and Playtime was a big one. You can't go wrong when you've got farting sounds from chairs, and so yeah, that caused a lot of laughs. That was a good one. But yeah, those are my earliest recollections, I guess, of international cinema. Oh, and also yeah, Jean Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast. And the main thing that I remember from that was these are fantastic the arms that came out of the walls holding the candles. That was just really sort of magical. And then moving on, 1989 seemed to be quite a big year, I guess, in terms of movie going or movie experiences. For one thing, I went on holiday by myself to Florida, and back then it was a big thing in that a lot of films will get released in the States before they get released in the UK. So I got to see a number of movies there, which I was really excited about. And also back at that time, there was this magazine, Film Review magazine, which came before Empire magazine. I don't know if it's the same people that ended up doing Empire, I'm not sure, but yeah, this was a fun magazine. But I used to be able to write into this magazine, and sometimes I would get articles printed in there. So yeah, I managed to feature on a feedback page in this one, where I was able to just talk about you know, movies that weren't yet in the UK. So that was a bit of a coup, I guess, you know. So the movies I saw that year in the States before they got released in the UK were Pink Cadillac, Roadhouse, K9, Pet Sematary, and See No Evil, Hear No Evil. But yeah, so that was fun. And then actually sticking with Film Review magazine from another issue, I was quite pleased when I actually got printed in here, and my letter got chosen to be a video winner. So that was a big deal back then. I actually wrote a review of License to Kill, the James Bond movie, and it won the video winner of the letters in that month. So the video I won back then was James Brooks's Broadcast News. And it just felt like such a big deal back then, because this was still at a time when to buy a video was a lot of money. It was like £70 to buy a video, unless you could maybe get in Blockbuster, you know, a copy that was ex-rental, you know, so you might be able to then start getting those cheaper. But yeah, it felt like a big deal to get Broadcast News, which was like, it was a new release, and it was like, wow, you know, that's £70 to try and buy that. So yeah, I always remember that. That was fun. And then also in 1989, another thing that was a lot of fun for me was I got to go to the Brighton Film Festival. So this was, you know, the UK's attempt to try and sort of recreate the fun and atmosphere of something like a Cannes Film Festival. So, you know, it was there on the seaside resort, and get to do a few premieres. So the royal premiere they had was Eric the Viking, Terry Jones's Eric the Viking, and yeah, I got to see that with, who was it, Prince Edward, in the audience. And then Terry Jones was there, you know, to do a big ad campaign. So they actually had a Viking ship out on the coast, and they had Miss Brighton turn up as well on the beach, and she got carried away by a whole load of Vikings and taken on board the Viking ship. But yeah, they had the cast there as well, so that included you know, John Gordon Sinclair and Gary Cady and you know, a few others. So that was good fun. But yeah, the actual movies I got to see at the Brighton Film Festival were, yeah, it was like seeing 15 films over 3 days. You know, I would have to just drive down to the coast each day and just go and see them. But yeah, it was Jean-Jacques Arnaud's The Bear, Field of Dreams, and Phil Alden Robinson was actually there to talk about that. Great Balls of Fire, Dennis Quaid playing Jerry Lee Lewis. Henry V, Kenneth Branagh's version. Major League, Tom Berenger. Oliver and Company, the Disney animation. Wilt with Griff Rhys-Jones and Mel Smith. A Chorus of Disapproval with Anthony Hopkins and Jeremy Irons. Cookie with Emily Lloyd and Peter Falk. The Dream Team, Michael Keaton. Lethal Weapon 2. The Rachel Papers with Dexter Fletcher. And When Harry Met Sally. So yeah, that was a fun packed 3 days seeing those movies, and I think a couple of others as well. Anyway, I'll stop there. Don't want this to be too long, and I've probably already rambled too much and said about 5,000 times. There we go again. And but yeah, I just thought, let's get things started. Let's start talking about movies. Maybe some of this will be interesting to someone, maybe it won't. Like I say, there's hundreds of people out there who have got amazing channels and do amazing stuff talking about movies. Maybe I've got something to contribute, maybe I haven't, we'll see. But if you have taken the time to watch this, then I really appreciate it. Thanks very much, and bear with me because I know how crap I sound at the moment and how many ums and ahs and all that kind of stuff. It's intimidating doing this, you know. But yeah, there we go. Anyway, maybe we'll see each other again, but for now, thanks for watching. But one final thing before I go, yeah, if you feel like it, leave a comment as to what kind of films started you off. What was your first movie that you saw at the cinema, or what was the first film that really made you think, wow, this makes me a movie fan? Yeah, let me know. Okay, thanks again. Bye.